we've targeted 5 free agent cornerbacks that we think can help this team. All of them would most likely be pretty short contracts, right? 1 year or 2.
Mm-hmm.
All of them would be, they're all coming from different backgrounds and explaining why they're free agents. And they all offer something a little different. I didn't rank them. Maybe you will at the end. Maybe, you can, I'm sure you have like a favorite and a least favorite, but I think they all offer a different upside and different downside. And I have a question for each one of them. All right. We'll start with Stephon Gilmore, 33 years old. His last contract was 2 years, $20 million. He started every single game last season, but there was a shoulder injury at the beginning of the very last game of the regular season. So he's coming off injury despite not being like a bunch of injuries that like were nagging and keeping right. It was just kind of like one big one. I don't know which one's better or worse, but that's kind of what it was. And my question is, would he play on a young, unproven team at 33 years old? Kind of one of those guys that's like, all right, get me on a winner, and so I can retire in the next year or two.
I think he would, but it's going to be a late signing. It's going to be like, well, we don't want to pay for a 33-year-old corner who's lost a little bit, still good, but we have to pay a lot more for him. We have younger guys. This is one of the guys that I don't think we're going to sign because he just checks too many boxes in the wrong category, in the wrong side. He's a little older. His skills are diminishing. We've seen a steady decline, although he has played well. We've seen a decline in his play the last few seasons steadily. So it's not like he's been doing in just 1 year was a drop off. It's been a steady decline. He is older, and he's coming off of injury. Those are a lot of negative marks.
I would say, and we'll get to the other 4 guys in a minute. I would say, gun to my head, who's just like the best corner week 1 of this next season? It'd probably be him. Now, there's guys that are scheming better. There's guys that are younger. But just blanket statement, I would say the best possible player overall would be Gilmore. And so that's what kind of intrigues me the most by him. He's probably just going to be the best, most likely, right? Like you said, he's declining, but not. Stephon Gilmore at 80% of his prime is still
pretty damn good.
Really good. And,
Defensive Player of the Year 1 year,
right? Probably the best, probably the best corner on our team, right? Depending on how Jack Jones develops. So, I think he would, but I think it's kind of what you said. I think it'd be expensive. I think it'd be kind of late, and we'd have to get lucky. It'd have to be some of the contenders are like, we're good. Not enough draft capital, something like, or cap space, something like that to get him. Next one, Xavien Howard, 30 years old. When the Dolphins released him, he had 3 years remaining on a 5-year, $90 million contract. So this is kind of like the Christian Wilkins, where he's good. Like this is exactly the kind of free agent you want. Like guys are free agents for a reason. Either they're not good anymore, locker room cancer, injuries that are kind of hidden, or the best case scenario, just a cap casualty. The Dolphins had to release guys. They just could not afford all these giant contracts, and Xavien Howard is one of them. He has said specifically in interviews he wants to go to a contender. Like, I will take a pay cut to go to a contender. So here's the question. Are the Raiders contenders enough to lure him?
I think the lure is going to be Christian Wilkins. I think if Christian Wilkins is like, nah, dude, this team they got things going over here. Like, you're going to want to be a part of this. If that can happen, then I can see Xavien Howard being on that team. The only reason why Xavien Howard got cut is because you have 2 super duper expensive receivers on that team, on that Miami team, and you're going to have to pay your quarterback soon. So that's the only reason they let him go. They're probably going to extend Tua this year, which is they're going to need the cap space for that.
They're coming out of their push all in on a rookie quarterback window. Like that window closed.
Yeah, it's closing already, and it's all right. and they waited long enough. They have no more time to do it. And the big money for the Tyreek Hill contracts are starting to roll in. The first couple of years were like a little bit of a cushion, and then now this is the big money starts to come in. And Waddle's got paid, so it's like it's gonna you can only have so much money to throw out there, and I think Xavien Howard would be a good fit for us. And I think with the familiarity with Wilkins, I think it could be a possibility.
You need Wilkins to do some tampering, some semi illegal tampering.
It's not tampering if it's the players doing it. I mean,
give him a call, right? Hit him up on social media. I'm surprised I haven't seen that anywhere, right? Like Wilkins kind of like luring him over. He'd also probably be, of all the guys we're talking about, probably the one that's going to want the longest contract and probably the most expensive. I'm guessing that's what he would want.
He probably would be the most expensive.
He was like 40% of the way through a 5-year, $90 million contract.
That was a funny money contract, though.
They all are, but like the rest of these guys.
At least the other contract, at least half of it is guaranteed. The half of the years. This is they cut him for a very minimal dead cap.
Yeah, but compared to all these other guys, he was balls deep in a contract, right? That would be the hardest one. Is like you got to be a contender, make him pay.
JC Jackson,
Well, we'll get to that. I said that one for last for a reason.
Yeah.
The other Jackson, Adoree Jackson, 28. Last year he had a 3-year, $39 million, $24.5 million guaranteed. Pretty good guarantees for a cornerback contract. Tons of injuries. He has been plagued with injuries the whole time he was in New York. But because he's in New York, would a return to play with Patrick Graham again entice him enough to want to come to the Raiders?
Definitely. I think Adoree played some of his best ball under PG. Mm-hmm. And he's not going to be asked to do a lot of different things that they were asking him to do with the Giants. They were asking him to return punts and return kicks and all that stuff. Like, that's not him anymore. Just go out there, be the corner that we know you can be. Super athletic, just quick, ball hawking type of corner. I saw him play a lot at SC, and he was just a do everything kind of guy. Mm-hmm. He's just super athletic, and just imagine a faster Amik Robertson, how he was always around the ball, mm-hmm. but a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, and I think, overall better corner than Amik. But yeah, that would be a good get. There is that substantial injury history. I don't know that I think one time he missed substantial time, but it's always something.
Yeah,
where he's nicked up and he's missing a game here, a couple of games there, and that's not really what we're looking for.
Well, I mean, we'd have to rely on our depth if he was our a starting outside corner. Like, all right, guys, Vason, guys, you're gonna be getting some time. If Adoree's our starter, you all got to be ready, right? But again, anyone who knows that was we talked about this before. Like when Patrick Graham first came in 2 seasons ago, remember his defense didn't really kick in right away. It took a while for it to work because he had brand new guys at corner all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if guys don't know the scheme, it's just like all you can do is bump and run. Like you can't, you don't have enough time to be able to, switch into quarters and do we go from a cover 3 to cover 1? You just have to do that, right? This guy's coming in knowing the system. Out of all the guys, his learning curve is gonna be the shortest. Yeah. So but the only thing really is the injury. And he's the youngest of the 5 we're talking about, and he's the one I'm most worried about injury-wise. So it's not gonna get better, but the injury is always such a wild card. Like you always kind of assume, if you have an injury history, it's going to continue, and you always assume if you have no injury history, that's going to continue. And sometimes they completely flop. They flip flop, right? Guys have been injured forever, and they go 5 years, no problem. Guys from the first 5 years of their 5 seasons of their career, no injuries, and then boom, they just fall off the wagon, right? So that's the giant. He's the biggest wild card to me out of the 5. No wild card. You know exactly what you're getting with Patrick Peterson. 33 years old. His last contract was 2 years, $14 million, only $5.8 million guaranteed. This is like a potential future Hall of Famer that did a $5 million deal. That's how hanging on by a thread he still kind of is to be able to still play in the NFL. So the question with this guy does his veteranship outweigh the massive age decline? So he's going to get beat. He's not going to be the same level tackler, but can he be the general of our DB room? And and how he helps everyone else, will that outweigh the massive physical decline of a 12-year player?
This one's intriguing. He doesn't have a very extensive injury history. He's just, we talked about 80% of Stephon Gilmore is really good. 75% of Patrick Peterson is still really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he can be like that coach on the field. We have a really young secondary. And for someone like Patrick Peterson, who our very first guest, AJ Hawk, what do you say? Guys listen to the players that make plays. That holds a lot of weight in the locker room. Patrick Peterson comes in as someone who's going to more than likely be a Hall of Famer. And he says, this is how I prepare. This is how I get ready. This is what I do. This is what I look for in tape. And it's just like you wrote here, it's going to that veteran leadership is going to help a lot. Plus, he can still play at a level that's going to be. I mean, he's better than Faison. He's better than Bennett, even at 33.
Yep. And you get him for real cheap.
Oh yeah,
last 2-year deal was $5.8 million. I mean, that's what you're negotiating against. Real cheap. So he's an interesting one with how veteran he is. And then the last one, the most interesting, at least to talk about, JC Jackson. He's still only 28 years old. You remember that last giant contract that the Chargers gave him? God bless. That was that Chargers regime.
Freaking Telesco. Telesco did him.
Oh, Jesus. Telesco, very familiar with JC Jackson. 5 years, $82 million, $40 million guaranteed. The second he signed that deal, he went to shit.
Yeah.
Injured.
Well, he got injured his first season, and then he got a new coach the second season, and the defense was completely different. Didn't suit him very well. There is.
It was a healthy scratch on a 5-year, $80 million contract.
Yeah.
That second.
Yeah. It just wasn't. It wasn't working, and I think maybe his attitude was a little bit of an issue as well because of it. There's a little bit of a tie to Patrick Graham from the whole Patriot thing, and it's also a kind of a tie a little bit with Xavien Howard as well from Brian Flores in Miami, and JC Jackson was with the Patriots, and Patrick Graham was with them a while back. So there's some familiarity in the secondary with how they play and what they're looking for. I can see JC Jackson coming in with a guy like Patrick Graham, right? With a guy like Antonio Pierce, with Tom Telesco, a guy who's already shown to have a lot of faith in him and belief in him, to say, look, we believe in you. We're going to try you out on this deal here, but the money's coming if the play and the attitude is right. And I don't know that Patrick Graham is going – if this goes through, there's a big if. But if this goes through, I don't see them making that move unless Patrick Graham knows exactly what he's going to do with him.
Oh, yeah. So you answered my question before I asked it, because you think like, okay, it didn't work out with the Chargers. Like, all right, Brandon Staley's a schmuck. Maybe you can kind of blame that. Maybe, okay, maybe that's where we place the blame, right? Brandon Staley sucked. But then he goes to the Patriots, where it's supposed to be the most hard-nosed, we'll get the best out of you place. Healthy scratch. Didn't last there either, right? So if we do pick him up, and the talent's there, right? There's it's very specific, right? I think he has to play a very specific type of corner.
Very specific role, yeah.
But the talent is there. But is the head case an issue? So the big question is, can Antonio Pierce, Patrick Graham, and this like baller locker room that exists, can that set him straight? Because you want to use it, right? Like, we had this big argument about, Russell Wilson's like, oh, don't bring him in, he'll destroy the locker room. It's like, well, you have a great locker room, and that's an asset that you can use, right? So like, you can bring in potentially maybe a JC Jackson who's a head case, maybe a pinhead, and this locker room is strong enough to get out to fix him, right? Not the other way around, right? He's not going to poison the locker room. The locker room is going to heal him. So it's AP getting his head right, PG scheming him correctly, and this locker room being like, this is how we roll. Maxx and everybody, we're here at 6 a.m. working. We're busting our ass every single time out. We're not taking any reps off. I don't care what your deal is. This is how we work here, right? Like, all those things together could maybe make turning JC Jackson around a thing in Las Vegas.
Well, yeah, and JC Jackson is the type of player that you want to take a chance on. you don't want to take a chance on a character issue when he's your starting quarterback, because that holds too much weight in the locker room. If he wants to, like, you know, the potential for a coup is a lot higher with someone who has that kind of pull, right? But a guy who's been paid, bounced around, you know, been humbled a little bit with, you know, healthy scratch and, you know, cut from a team that gave him a bunch of money and stuff like that. That's the type of guy that you want to take a chance on. And they did it with Jack Jones. He came in there and you know, he did have that familiarity and a history with Antonio Pierce, but it's a nice gamble with the contract that he's going to probably get. It's not going to be anything crazy.
Hey, you made it to the end of our video. Great job. I know you want more. Go ahead and click the next video. And if you're feeling crazy, go ahead and subscribe.